So I'm going to move on. I want to talk about the nimitta. We've touched on that already today, but I'd like to go into that a little bit more. The nimitta, as I mentioned, is one of the hallmarks in the Pawak system, the Pawak practice tradition that's necessary. And the reason that we also focus on the breath here in the Anapana region rather than the throat, the chest, or the abdomen, the belly, is because when the nimitta comes in to merge with the breath, it merges in this location, and then that will precede jhana arising. If our awareness is inside with the breath, the nimitta can't merge. So in the Pawak understanding, jhana can't arise if we're not with the breath in the Anapana region. Now, that's not to say we can't access jhana from other modalities, other meditations, both the heart practices, the Brahma Viharas, things like the Kasinas also can open us to that third level of concentration absorption. And just to say again, only concentration meditations have the third level of absorption. Every meditation has momentary concentration and access concentration. So those are common with every meditation, but for there to be absorption, we have to have a stable meditative object, which only the concentration meditation topics do. So the way that the practice develops, I mentioned earlier, as we're with a concentration practice, in this case, Anapanasati, or with the breath in the Anapana region, that as we make deeper and deeper contact with the breath, and as we lessen our doing, when we have good contact, we want to lessen our effort. This is a really important skill set to learn. And the flip side of that is when we feel we're not crisp on the breath, then we may want to introduce a little more doing, a little more efforting to get a clear contact with the breath. We don't want our contact with the breath to be muted, to be diffuse. We want there to be a certain amount of precision and clarity. And I'm always reluctant to talk like this because people will put a lot of energy into the clarity and precision, and they'll get into a lot of over efforting. This is really fine tuning. So it's not big changes, it's not large amounts of effort. We're just fine tuning discreetly. But you have to learn in your practice when it needs clarifying and when the clarity is sufficient. When you have a crispness to it, then you can begin to relax without sacrificing that clarity or crispness. But if you have a real diffuse object, it's hard to go very deep with it. It's almost like we can't quite perceive it sufficiently to take it deeper. So as we're developing along, as we're getting into access concentration, and for it to be technically access concentration, we need to be with the Anapana region, with the breath in particular, uninterrupted for at least 5 to 15 minutes. And when I say interrupted, I'm meaning we're completely gone from the breath. I don't mean we're on the breath and we think about having a sandwich for lunch. If the thought crosses our mind, but we're still with the breath, that's still being with the breath. You haven't lost the breath. What I mean is if you're with the breath and then you find yourself planning some work conference and you're putting together a presentation and you're making a guest list, then you're totally gone from the breath, from the object. So that is 100% gone, and you come back and start over. But if you're simply just off a little bit or a thought passes, that's not being off the breath. So when we get to that access concentration, when we can feel a kind of stability and landedness with the breath, we want to start relaxing effort. We want to just start receiving rather than doing. And again, maintaining the clarity. So we maintain that clear contact with the breath, but we just relax effort. We relax doing, trying to make anything happen, trying to go in a direction. We just deeply penetrate the breath in the stillness and peace. And so we'll just keep going deep with that. And we'll find that if we relax the breath appropriately, you'll feel a sudden draw down. It'll be like something is just taking you, descending. You're going to lower levels, deeper levels. And it's very clear I'm not doing any technique. I don't have anything I'm doing or performing that's making this happen. This is just happening. And so it's a good sign when that happens, and it makes us want to not play with our thoughts, to not go and create this agenda for the work presentation. We want to stay with the breath. So it really becomes satisfying too. We have a contentedness with it. So this is how we need to be with the breath. And then as we develop an access concentration, we have byproducts called the jhana factors. And again, the jhana factors can arise in any meditation. They're not the exclusive province of concentration meditation. I had jhana factors when I used to do shikantaza in my early Zen days. I would be with the object closely enough, and I used the breath as my object in shikantaza in those days. And I would have things like a nimitta appearing, and I would have different jhana factors arising to where the sitting was comfortable and enjoyable, pleasant, all of that. So just know those come up. The focused attention, the bliss and joy will come up and help support because we can sit comfortably. The rule is that if you're doing this practice and you're in the zone, if things are going well, you're continuing to steep in the stillness and peace, you're going deeper and deeper. Stay with that sit. Don't stop. If you're having a meditation where you're flopping all over the place, you can't find the breath well, you can't get established, you're plagued by memories, thoughts, planning, whatever it is, then end that meditation on time. Don't extend it. We want to extend the ones we're in the zone and going well. The ones we're struggling with, we end on time. So a good rule of thumb there. So as we get deeper and the jhana factors are present and they begin to increase, they get like the joy and bliss get stronger. We can get the one-pointedness where we can stay with the object with minimal, if any, effort. Then the nimitta, light phenomenon, will begin to arise around the time that we get stable on the breath and the jhana factors are beginning. And as I mentioned, we can have all sorts of light phenomena. I don't even describe it anymore typically because every time I do, somebody has a light phenomenon that's different than I've described. So just understand there's many, many ways it shows up. And the main practice tip with light phenomenon is not to get excited, not to go and make the light phenomenon your meditative object. You have to maintain contact with the breath. So we don't want to reject the light phenomenon. I had students who sometimes will say, well, I don't want to get attached, so I'm pushing that away, or I'm ignoring it, I'm pretending it's not there. Well, what happens is the practice doesn't develop because they're rejecting one of the progressions of the practice, the light phenomenon preceding the nimitta. So we have to welcome the light phenomenon without making it our object. So a number of you mentioned you're having beautiful days where you live. And as you're meditating, if you're not paying attention to the beautiful day outside, then you can stay with the meditation. As soon as you start looking out that door or window and seeing the wonderful day out there, then you're going to be distracted from meditation, and your object is now the outside. So we have to keep our awareness very connected to the breath. It's got to be very intimate with the breath. We just keep developing that intimacy, going deeper and deeper in the intimacy with the breath. So the light phenomenon, as we get deeper into high access concentration, the jhana factors are present with stability, meaning they're with us, if not all the time, a lot of the time. And we're feeling it. And you may have light phenomenon on and off the cushion. Some people, they only have light phenomenon on the cushion. Some people have it on and off. I just mention it so it's normalized to whatever your experience is. It's not, there's no great meaning behind it. It's just some people, it seems to be accessible when they're off the cushion, and for others, it's not. But staying with the breath is the most important thing on and off the cushion. And as we do this, the light phenomena will begin to coalesce, meaning instead of streaks of light around your visual field, they'll begin to come together. They'll kind of begin to form a mass. For some people, the light does form into this light orb. For other people, the light orb, the nimitta orb, is preceded by a kind of reverse nimitta, a negative of the nimitta. So some people have enough sensitivity, they can feel the energy collecting before the light phenomenon comes together. So in other words, they can feel the rotation, let's say, of energy in where the sphere is going to be. And it begins to sort of just start moving, and it's like it draws in the light, is how it feels. So for some of the folks, the light will begin to move into this orbish structure. And for others, they'll have a kind of a sense of an orb, but it's black. It can be luminous and black, but it typically is black, and there's just a sense of an energy coalescence is how it feels. And then when that energy comes together and they're stable enough in high access concentration, then that negative of the nimitta orb will flip, and the nimitta in its full brightness will be in that space. So again, that's not everybody. That's a percentage of folks. I mention it just to normalize it if it's you. If it's not you, don't worry. You don't have to have that happen. It's just one of the distinctions I've seen with some people. So again, we're staying with the breath through all of this. We're not rejecting the nimitta process. We're including it in our meditation, but we're trying not to get overly excited by it. One of the instructions I used to give on retreats was not to play with your nimitta, not to go and get fascinated by it, in effect, make it your object. The reality is most everybody does it. And I'll, in fact, go even farther and say everyone does it. And I have people on retreat who will, when the nimitta phenomenon starts, will swear to me in interview, I'm not going to play with my nimitta. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to just stay with the breath. And of course, they eventually come in telling me they did play with the nimitta. So we all do it. And what happens when you play with it is the nimitta goes away because the concentration begins to drop. And so the nimitta will break apart and go away. Fortunately, it's not gone forever. Once we rekindle that level of concentration, the nimitta will generally appear again, or the reverse nimitta will appear again, the energy phenomenon. So just know that that's part of the process. It's part of what's being purified. If we're somebody who's a striver, you really, really want jhana to happen. You have the idea that if I just work a little harder, put a little more effort in, it'll happen. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. If it did, I would teach striving. But what one has to do is to recognize that we need to bring a lot of effort, a very specific kind of effort. And at the same time, we need to relax and not hold on to any expectation of progression. So it's a strange phenomenon where we bring full awareness, we bring our full presence, our full energy, and yet we also hold that I'm not attached to where this goes or what happens, what the progression is, because we don't control the progression except staying with the breath. That's our only function. Let me pause here to see if there's any questions on what I've shared. Yeah, in the progression of jhana, you want to stay with the breath always. And there's different practices. Shikantaza is being with the black. Opening to cessation is being with the black. So there are practices we do which orient to that, but this is not one of those. Any other questions or comments?